going to start by taking attendance, and then, as I mentioned, we can discuss whether or not we want to go in the order that we have the original agenda, or if we want to move up some of the housekeeping and talk about current developments and focus on training and then circle back, which I think is allowable. So anyway, attendance. Okay, so Lisa Ortiz, I'm the chair, I'm here. Gary Dean.
I'm here.
David Smith.
I'm here.
Martine Ennis Osaria. See you there. Julie Evans.
Here.
Anika Montgomery.
Here.
Fantastic. And Jim Miller is out, but he let us know, so we understand. So thanks, everybody. So I leave it all to you. Would you like to talk about what's going on and kind of talk about the training schedule, or should we just stick to the agenda? We would get to that at the end anyway. I just wanted people to, because I know you've all been hit with news that we haven't had any time to discuss. So you tell me, what do you want to do?
I would rather move it up. It will likely affect other elements of discussing.
Now, what news was reported? I'm sorry.
So I sent out an email last night. Fair enough, it was late last night, to let you guys know that after talking with a couple of the members about consistent absences, they decided to step back and give up their participation in the COB. So we've lost 2 members that we need to replace. So consequently, the training schedule is going to need to be adjusted. If you haven't got a chance to read the email, when you get a chance, I would, give it a glance so you can kind of get the background on stuff. Okay, so that's basically what happened. I'm just going to open it up. Anybody can ask whatever you want, and let's just talk about it.
Well, what would the process be, I guess, to get other members to fill in their roles?
Good question. So, as you all know, we've all been appointed by the Arlington County Board, right? We all went through an application process. So about 100 people went through that process, and I've spoken previously, quite some time ago, to Christian Dorsey and Matt DeFerrante about, who are our liaisons from the Arlington County Board, what would happen if we lost members, because I could see from the way the ordinance is constructed that if we lost folks, it could be problematic because we have all this training we have to do in order to be certified. So what they said is that they have a strong pool of potential candidates, and they feel confident that they could circle back to the people who've applied and fill those positions relatively quickly. So that is the process. That's great. Yeah, I did suggest to them that perhaps Mummy and Gary and I should join them in talking to any potential new members, just so we can give them some background about what we've been doing, and also kind of, get them up to speed as to what it entails, to join the board. Because, to be fair, none of us knew the time commitment that was going to be required. And, we just want to be sure that they feel comfortable with that before they sign on. So.
Now, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay. And this, if they would want to, but what's the possibility of, so it doesn't hold up everything, waiting for the new people to be trained? What's the possibilities of having the members that are non-voting members now move into those slots that are vacant, and then the new people who come in, they become non-voting members? If the people who are non-voting members, will want to move up.
That's a good question, and I've asked that question. However, to be clear, we've lost 2 members, and one of them was a non-voting member. So we only have 1 more non-voting member. So we would still be in a situation. No. So would that work? Yes. I mean, we would have all the voting members we need, but we're supposed to be 9 people. And so I'm not certain that would change the equation, because regardless of whether people are voting or non-voting, the full COB is 9 people, and all those people have to be trained. So, but I have asked that question. I've never gotten a clear response, but go ahead.
Was it not also pertinent that the 2 non-voting members were selected to be non-voting members because of their law enforcement background? And so I thought that part of the structural, composition was meant to be so that we have access to that perspective, but so that perspective doesn't govern in a way that might compromise our ability to seem totally independent from law enforcement.
Yes, although, they have to have been separated from any sort of law enforcement type position for at least 3 years, something like that. So, they're not currently. But you are correct. That was the purpose. And I do believe that is what they were looking for when they selected people as non-voting. So there is also that problem. And in any case, I don't think it solves the challenge that we still need to be 9 people. Yeah. So we're still in the situation, but I mean, I guess what I have to say is that, I think, as I said, none of us knew we were signing up for when we signed on. We blindly were like, yes, I want to do that. And I think all of us, as I said to you, the level of commitment all of you have shown has just humbled me totally, because I know how busy you all are, and I know you all have lives and jobs and all that kind of stuff, and that this has really asked you to step up in a way that you probably weren't expecting. And so I have no problem with people determining that it wasn't for them. And I appreciate them making that determination now rather than later. So, it sets us back a little bit, but we've got so many things that need our attention and that we could be working on that, I'm not too bummed out about it. I don't know if Mommy wants to say anything, or anybody else wants to say anything, or Gary, if you'd like to say anything about it, reflections or anything.
No, thanks, Lisa. I know Mommy might, but no, thanks for laying that out, Lisa. I know this is a difficult topic. So the things that I've shared with Lisa and Mommy, as far as the county owns this process, and we're the inaugural people here, and I asked, as we move forward, however they do it, just like Lisa said, there's pros and cons of taking I think the county's going to have to work through that process of, is it easier to get a law enforcement background, remove 3 years, or is it easier to, just move somebody over? So we'll let them do that. If they need our input, we'll give that to them. But what I asked for, I think all of us can agree that in the hiring process, I just asked Mommy to relay that we try to give a little bit of realism to the training commitment, because I think when we all volunteered, the invitation letter, I wanted to serve, and the training thing kind of, it didn't take me by side. I'm still here. I've missed training before, but I think it's just, without scaring people or making it seem impossible, just giving a little bit more reality to the commitment, the footprint to get trained. Once we get trained, maybe it won't be, once we finish this great training we've had, but just a little bit more transparency at the front. And, even being the first one, maybe it was hard to kind of put that in that advertisement, or, the process of bringing somebody on. But I think we have a lot more information now. We're making progress. And so that was my main input. And then the other thing is that that we stay committed to making sure that we don't let the clock drive us. The readiness resolution, obviously that's going to be affected. I think we're all bummed because lately the training has kind of, I don't know about you, but I've been like, hey, we're finally seeing the light here, and the training's been outstanding. So I hope we can keep the energy up. I think this kind of feeling we've had of, hey, we're just about there. I just hope that we can come up with some creative ways. I know Lisa was talking about this, about, how can we look at things moving forward? So making sure we're qualified, we'll get the new people on board, even if that takes us, another month or two. So I'll be looking forward to hearing the timeline that the county comes back with, so that we can kind of all work together on, the things that we have. I know Lisa has a lot to say about all these other things, Julie, you and Dave, the great work you have. And, we have other things to do, but I want to hopefully find a way to keep the momentum that we've been seeming to gain the past couple of meetings.
Thanks, Gary. Graham, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a clarification on sort of the conversation about non-voting members serving as voting members. And county ordinance and state code are very clear about this. Non-voting members are not voting members. They are a distinct, separate category. They are non-voting, so they cannot serve as a voting member even temporarily. And the point of the non-voting member position is to provide sort of a professional insight. A voice that has insight into the role of law enforcement, but not to serve as a vote. So they are non-voting.
Yeah, I think that's the key point, is that they were selected with a particular purpose in mind, and that's all that really matters, and that's all that's really important here. I just wanted to add one thing to Gary, which is every time, we talk about, we're getting to the end of the great training and, and the light at the end of the tunnel. I keep telling him he needs to push that light farther out, because there are so many things, important things we need to do, exciting things we need to do, like the community outreach thing that Julia and Dave have been working on, like figuring out ongoing training, like, the way I see it is this is an opportunity, however long it takes them to bring new people on board and get them trained up, to get all those creative juices going and just start thinking about all the things we'd like to do and, the ways we'd like to engage. We haven't really had the time to think about that. So, I see it as a little bit of a gift. We have a little bit of a respite in the training and time to think about all the other great things we want to do. And, so I keep telling Gary, that light is way down there. So it's not as close as you think it is. So does anybody else want to say anything, or Julie?
I was just going to add, I think it does give us a sort of renewed opportunity to talk about how we can, convene in person, informally, not for COB business once, the two new folks are selected, because I know part of the reason I wanted to have this, I was interested in having this conversation at the beginning and not at the end, is, the training is really immersive and intensive. And I think that's been a really good thing for the most part, because, it really has submerged us into the full spectrum of their training obligations and sort of policy approaches. It's also given me time to digest, like, what would us giving policy recommendations look like, and what are sort of the other ins and outs of what we're going to do. So I guess my last question is just about the logistics of, we are so far into our training program that, at least I hear you that, the end of training isn't actually the end of our light at the end of the tunnel. But what sort of time expectations do we think from, finding and selecting these folks to, I'm sure that's an ongoing conversation. That's just where my head goes to, what can we do in the interim instead, if anything, while we try to figure that out?
Oh, so I thought your question was going somewhere else, as to how long do we think it'll take before they fill those positions and then those people get the training. But are you asking, what else can we structure for ourselves to do in the interim? Is that the question? Both. Okay. Yeah. So I will let Mummy talk about, because I think maybe she has a better idea about the timeline for potentially what it would look like to bring people on board and how long it would take them to finish the training. As far as the other pieces, before I turn it over to her, we have the MOU. We still have to do, and we need to do that in order to get certified. We need to pass the bylaws, which hopefully we're going to do today. We have the great community outreach plan that you guys are putting together. And, you know, I don't know that there's anything that would necessarily keep us from executing on that, starting to execute on that plan if we wanted to. We have all kinds of other things to think about. How do we want to be communicating into that, you know, larger Arlington community? You know, we do have a web page. We don't do anything with it. We could do stuff with it. You know, I've also said that it would be great. I know the budgets sound boring to people, and we don't have a very big budget, but, you know, a couple of people wanted to put their heads together about, you know, what constructively could we do with a budget, and, you know, what kinds of things might we want to do. I know Anika's been interested in the health, you know, sort of aspect, mental health aspect of the work that we're doing. What might that look like, you know? So I think we could see about, like, you know, maybe brainstorming whenever our next meeting is, or yeah, maybe brainstorming, or maybe even at the end of this meeting, about some things that we might want to carve out and start talking about while we're waiting. But for sure, the MOU and the bylaws have to be done. And you're so far down on the great community outreach, we should also kind of finalize that. But I don't know if Mummy wanted to say anything about the recruitment and the training of new people.
Hey, just before Mummy speaks, I just wanted to just add one other point. And Mummy, I guess this is a suggestion for you that you might cover this. So, you know, back in August, we kind of mixed our schedules and times and came up with October 15th. We all committed to that date. And so obviously, we're not going to have an answer today. I know that you're working very close with the county on the way forward and with Captain Chamberlain, and we certainly don't expect an answer now, but, you know, that was a pretty good, you know, having us all commit to that date. So moving forward, I think it's going to be important, you know, in the near future, not anything immediate, but coming up with that synchronized date is going to be very important. When the time is right for that. And like Mummy, I think you told me, we're not in a race, but I think respecting all of our time and families and all those kind of things, we made that early commitment about 2-3 months out. And so I think, I'm not saying it's going to take another 3-month period, but I think for all of us to, as we come back with the new people here, you know, just I think you'll cover that a little bit here, but I think all of us want to be sure that we can make that commitment again. And so I'll look forward to that, you know, when that time is right.
I'm delighted that we'll be able to keep working on this stuff in the interim. I think that having a sort of delay gives us maybe an opportunity. I guess what motivates my question is, you know, in this meeting format, like right now, we don't really have anyone in the public that I can see. I know it's a publicly recorded meeting and everything, but whether this creates an interim meeting opportunity to have some of these conversations in a little bit more longer format than has been possible, that, you know, we do have some activities and topics and issues that, you know, it's very hard to coordinate in pairs. I think we all know that by now. So I wonder if this sort of gives us a little bit of wiggle room to dive deeper into some of that stuff in these meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure. So I'm not sure. I know Mummy's on, but I don't know if she might be otherwise occupied because she hasn't.
I'm sorry, I just haven't had a chance to chime in because everybody had so much to say and I didn't want to cut anyone off. But no, I'm here and listening to the conversation. I think there's a lot of different points to address here. One of the things I wanted to point out is in response to Anika's question just about like the process of replacing members. The ordinance is just kind of we're restricted to what's in the ordinance in terms of, you know, what we need in terms of the composition of the board and the number of members, and any changes, even if it was like on an interim basis of moving one member to another, will require changes there, and also I think might trigger some potential issues regarding the Virginia code. But any questions related to that, I think the only person that could accurately answer would probably be Min Chow. So we would need to get advice from her on that issue specifically. And related to the training schedule and what we could be doing in the meantime, I just want to make sure that we are looking at this from a full perspective of kind of what all is going to be required in order to get us passed and to get the readiness resolution passed. I strongly encourage that we all kind of go back to the ordinance with a fresh set of eyes, because the training is laid out there, and then also the things that we need in order for the readiness resolution to be passed. And so in my eyes, and I tend to like relook at the ordinance quite regularly with a fresh set of eyes, because I feel like every time I read it, I see something different, or I see something that was already there differently. And so specifically, our training requirements are listed in section 69.7. If you go down to the bottom, section D talks about additional training that the county or myself shall provide to the oversight board, and it says shall, not may. So I read that as being required. So there's a number of topics there that we can delve into while we are waiting for new members to come to be selected and to come on board. I also think that it would be really important for us to, as a matter of substance, right? Not necessarily getting through the training curriculum, but just making sure that we've absorbed the material and we understand how the material from an academic standpoint is applied in practice. And so I think it would be a really great learning experience to have to take observation of investigations that have been done in neighboring jurisdictions, previous investigations that ACPD has done, for example, even possibly having folks from COBs in neighboring jurisdictions come and speak with us and talk to us about some of the things that they've learned and the obstacles that they've encountered. Having an opportunity to put together the trainings that we've learned in NACOL, as well as the ACPD trainings, and putting it all together, you know, making sure that we understand how all of these things work in practice when we actually have to do an investigation is so critical. Because even folks in other jurisdictions will tell you, even after they completed their training and they started doing work, the main feedback was always like, oh wait, we thought we were ready, but you know, we actually could have used more training on this or more training on that. So we definitely have a lot to do on the training front in the meantime. And then if you scroll down to section, I believe it's 7. Going back through here. There's a section that specifically speaks to the readiness resolution, and that lays out exactly what components we would need to have in place in order for the county board to pass the readiness resolution. And that includes not just having completed the training, but having the staffing, having a complaint system in place, the MOU done, things of that nature. And so basically what that means, I feel in substance, is making sure that we've not just completed the training, but that we actually have the tools, the staffing, the resources that we need in order to do our jobs effectively. It's section 69.9, Oversight Board Duty, section A, Oversight Board Readiness Resolution. Specifically subsection 1 talks about when the Oversight Board has established its procedures, the member of understanding has been executed by all parties, the Oversight Board is sufficiently staffed, and training has been concluded. that it shall pass its readiness resolution. So I think the more things that we can be completing to get us uh, to the finish line beyond just the training in the meantime would serve us well. Because I just want to emphasize the point that it's not just finishing the curriculum that has been laid out to us by ACPD, which that in and of itself is a tremendous feat. But we also want to make sure that we are ready in a practical sense to hit the ground running with our work, and we have the proper resources and support to do that. So just, a couple of ideas that I wanted to point out. Again, just going back to the statute in terms of what it requires there of things that we can be working on. And I think this kind of ties into some of the other updates that I had, but the Learning Center is up and running. And so that there's an opportunity there for all of us to catch up on training, because there are various number of people who might have missed a session here or there. So this is a great opportunity for us to catch up. I also do want to just briefly say that that was not a one-person job at all. That was the work of Sharon Miller on the county's behalf, countless hours on her behalf, uploading all of that stuff for us and getting it up and running. And Graham and Stevie for making sure that the sessions were recorded and accessible, and just making sure that all of those things were uploaded in the right manner and working and ready for you all to access. That I'm just deeply appreciative for all of those efforts to make that happen. And also the other big benefit to having those up is as soon as we are able to select new members, they can hopefully get caught up relatively quickly by being able to go back and watch those trainings. Speaking to the tactical training and the remaining 2 ACPD trainings that we have, which are the Office of Professional Responsibility trainings. I will certainly defer to Captain Chamberlain if I don't fully capture the essence of what those 2 trainings entail. But I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of background as to why the schedule was designed the way that it was towards the end, and why it would be beneficial to do our best to keep that structure intact as we wait for new members to move forward. So basically trying to explain why it's important that we kind of hold off on getting those 2 new members on board to finish out those remaining sessions. Again, we have plenty of things to do in the meantime, but I just wanted to also give some kind of like context to that. So the context is that the last 2 trainings on the curriculum, the OPR trainings, that's the internal investigations. That's like the creme de la creme of what we're doing here. That's the structure of it. That's that's just kind of like the climax of the training. And in order for us to be able to absorb that in its full with the full capacity that we need to absorb it in, Captain Chamberlain designed it where we would have 1 session as an introduction, and then do the full tactical day training, and then conclude the OPR training to kind of put all of those things together. And so, we've been thinking about different ways to try to get certain things accomplished, even in the meantime. The tactical training is one that, unfortunately, it's just a really difficult and not as flexible situation because of the tremendous time and resources that it takes to put on that whole day training, having to reserve the academy, schedule the trainings, procure lunch and all different things throughout the day. And also, it's one of the few opportunities that we have to come together and collaborate as a group for that extended period of time. And so I think both in terms of team building and relationship building, but also in order to be mindful and respectful of the time and the resources that ACPD has put into putting on that training, it makes sense for us to be a full commission before continuing on with that training. As it pertains to the other 2 trainings, I talked to Captain Chamberlain and thought about combining those 2 OPR trainings and seeing if we could get those done while waiting for the tactical training. It's a possibility. However, consolidating them into one does not give you the benefit of having the context of the full day of training before you wrap it up. And so you're going to lose a little bit of context and a little bit of the power and effectiveness of the wrap up session. Additionally, having all members present for that one, especially in person, would make the training monumentally more effective as well, because that's where you guys are going to get an opportunity to actually practice and talk through like what an investigation looks like together. So that's an opportunity for you all to, you know, kind of feed off of one another, collaborate, ask questions collectively. I think all of us can agree, just when we've had an opportunity to meet in person, it's been tremendously more effective than virtually, and especially when we have as many people present as possible. That is one that we might be able to have some flexibility around, and I think Captain Chamberlain would be more than willing to discuss any potential ways to try to get this done as quickly as possible. Again, I would defer to her to, you know, let us know what she thinks in her professional opinion would be the best way to do it while not compromising the effectiveness of the training. That being said, you know, this is for me more about substance than it is about pace, right? If it takes us a little bit longer to get these trainings done, as I stated before, we have plenty of things to do in the meantime, but I want to make sure that this training is as effective as possible. So many people on the county side, on the ACPD side, and all of you have put in so many hours and so much time and commitment and you know, interest and just really blood, sweat, and tears to make this a successful endeavor. And so I don't think that we should compromise that at the end just because we are wanting to reach a deadline. If we're not able to find a creative way to do it effectively. That being said, I also want us to get to the finish line and want this to all be, you know, I want us to reach that goal, and I want us to continue to build on the momentum that we have. So in sum, I think that we should talk through kind of some ideas while keeping in mind that substance is more important than pace. And even if we have to rearrange the training schedule, I strongly hope that we will continue building on the momentum that we've built and that Jim really, you know, spearheaded, because we've accomplished so much and we are literally down to the last final hours of the ACPD curriculum, and a lot of other really exciting things on the horizon for us to do. So I just want to make sure that we keep up with that same energy, to use some of the younger euphemisms. So with that being said, I don't know if Captain Chamberlain has anything else that she wants to add, or if anybody has any questions about what I've said.
Mummy, I think you summed it up for me and my perspective and establishing the training. I think the most important thing for us is to come up with a date in November or December, and I know that is what we were trying to prevent first and foremost by not getting in that holiday time frame. So I just think if everyone's very, you know, clear about what they can't do, I'm sure I can figure out something and be creative with dates and stuff for us to get it done. That's it for me.
Great. Well, thanks to both of you. So I think we have a little work to do to sort out the training schedule and the dates. And I don't think we're going to manage that today. We may do it virtually, you know, through emails. I'm not exactly sure how maybe we'll send out a doodle poll. I don't know. But in any case, the important thing is that whatever we have scheduled between now and the end of October, as far as dates for training, won't be happening. So, so just to be sure everybody's clear on that. Does anybody have any other questions on training? I don't think we're going to be able to get any answers on nailing down dates or anything at this point, but.
Gary, I just have a question. So, Captain Chamberlain, as you said, you know, the holidays, November, December, as you were saying that, and I guess I'm more looking at the county, are you saying that under the hope that the county will have the replacement members hired by then, that they could then go through the videos and get to a place that we could all train together? Is that when you made the November, December reference, was that the reference that we might have them on board and ready to go, have this day together for the tactical training? Or were you thinking about other training during November, December?
No, that's what I was referring to, was the tactical training. And also the OPR training. We definitely could push both of those in a smaller time frame, in that, I threw out some dates. Me and Mummy were just kind of seeing how we could adjust it. And it's really, for the most part, other than confirming the Criminal Justice Academy and their availability, I can adjust whenever and be flexible to get the OPR training done. It would just need to have some shored up dates for it to happen.
And so, Mummy, I guess the question to you is, has the county, I know this question was asked, I can't remember who, Anik or somebody, I mean, do they have a rough estimate of how long it'll take them to, submit replacements? Did you get a timeline, or is that still kind of open?
We're trying our best to get it done by the end of the month.
Okay. That's a good aspiration. So, and I hope we do. So by saying that November, December are possibilities, that's why I asked that question earlier about dates. Is the earlier we can start, I mean, we can't rush, but the earlier we can start looking at those dates. I just want to respect everybody's time and commitment, and I think we'll all do our best effort to try to make those dates.
Well, not to complicate things, but I'll just throw out an idea that if we circled together and figured out what our availability is, that might be part of the discussion with them. Not that anybody we would want, if, oh, you can't make X date, gee, thanks, there's the door. But, more like, here are the dates we've got, can you do that? Because sometimes when you say to a person, X date, it's much easier for them to go, yes, I will clear my schedule, or yes, I'll make it, as opposed to saying, what's your availability? That's a little open-ended. So anyway, that's a possibility. Maybe we should consider already looking amongst ourselves at potential dates and, having that as part of the conversation with anybody who might be interested in joining the board. But I throw that out just as an idea. Anyway, I don't think we're going to solve this one now. Stay tuned, because I think you'll be getting some emails undoubtedly to start to get some thinking or keeping you updated. And so, does anybody want to have talk about this anymore? We can circle back to it again at the end of the meeting, but I don't want to stop the conversation if anybody has anything else they want to ask.
Would Jim be the best?
I don't have anything particularly. Go ahead.
You can go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I agree with what people have said about making sure that we do the training thoroughly and are substantively ready. And I think everybody's on board with that. I just wanted to say, me too. Yes, we want to be timely, and yes, we want to move it along, and hopefully, the new members can be added by the end of October, if possible. That would be great. But we've invested, and the police have already invested a lot of time, and I think, getting everybody to a point where we feel as comfortable as we will, and no doubt once we start actually doing the work, it'll be like, oh wow, that's, we're not going to literally have everything until we start doing things. But the training is exceptional. I do think my point only is that, we should do the training in a way that we really, absorb it and do it right. So I agree with that. That's all.
Thanks. Martine, yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, so would Jim be the best person to ask about what trainings we might have left to to do, which ones we should be viewing on the portal?
Yes, so he's got the rack up of what everybody's done. And so if you don't know or you can't remember, he'll absolutely be able to tell you. So yes, feel free to reach out to him and he'll be happy to help you.
All right, thanks.
Anything else on this for now? No? Okay. So back to the agenda. So we need to adopt the prior meeting notes from September 6th and September 20th. So those have been distributed and reviewed by the Oversight Board members. Are there any corrections anyone has? No? Okay, so hearing no corrections, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes from September 6th and 20th. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion that we adopt the meeting minutes from September 6th and September 20th.
Does anybody want to second that?
I second.
I second the motion.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed? Nay. Say nay. Any abstentions? Excellent. So the minutes from September 60th and 20th have been adopted. So that we're taking care of that. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about the bylaws. I still want to see if we can put our break in around 7:10 or whatever. So, but we can come back to the bylaws as well if there's more discussion to be had. So those have also been distributed. Does anybody have any questions specifically about them that you want to talk about?
I mean, remembering what we reviewed a while back, it seems to me like there's some, very clear sections with very, logical language. So I didn't see anything worth editing or changing. It might be helpful to put it up on the screen and just like section by section, make sure that everyone is talking about that, but that might take too much time.
I think like the only people who could potentially do that is Graham. And because I can't, and
I can put it up in just a second. Let me pull up the document.
Maybe Mummy can do it or somebody can do it.
I can try and pull it up.
Oh, anybody who can do it, that'd be great. And I appreciate it. We should have anticipated that. So while they're trying to get, oh, that was fast. Okay. Okay, so if you be willing to scroll through a little bit there, Stevie, just up a little bit.
Thank you, Stevie.
Okay. So this is all a little bit, okay. So I think all of this has really not changed and basically all came out of the ordinance. If, I'm going to leave it to Mummy. She incorporated all of the changes. So if there was something she realized was significantly different from what we had it before, we can look at all this. So, the introduction, the mission statement, and the functions and scope of work, I think, are all taken straight out of the ordinance. If you want to,
it's a good reference to have on hand, just for like, what can we do? This is what we do.
Right, exactly. Could you move it up a little bit, Stevie? To whatever the next section, okay, functions, membership. Okay, wow, yeah, membership. Okay, so again, I think this is straight out of the ordinance. It just explains who can be a member and how members serve and the structure of the COB. All of that is, again, it's basically out of the ordinance. I don't think there's anything different. If you could move it up to chair and vice chair. Again, I don't think there's anything different here. We discussed this a while ago. As you know, the structure didn't originally have a vice chair. But thank God they thought of including vice chair, because I don't know what I'd do without Gary. So, but we wanted to kind of formalize that, and we thought it would make sense to have the members vote on the vice chair because the chair is actually appointed, though we're going to start that in 2024, which I think makes perfect sense because I know that Gary and I both feel that to get this fully stood up, we would certainly hope to serve another year in order to get this kind of that full structure going. So we discussed that previously. The staff liaison, that I think is also from the ordinance, the training.
Hey, Lisa, can you hold just a second before we leave page 3? So I think this is good, but this is more of a question, maybe a housekeeping kind of a thing that can be a suggestion later of some place where there's a person by person description. So it talks about the 4 voting members, 18-month terms. I think it'd be good for us to keep kind of, and it's not going to change very often, but we can build it now that shows the overlap, like, okay, which board members are going to be there for the 18 months and the 4 years. So I think not in the MOU, not in the bylaws, but this is a separate thing that we can work together, maybe with our with the admin person that works with Mummy, is to work with the county and develop a visual so that we can name by name see kind of what the plan is moving forward.
Gary, if you want, we could work on that. I think we could put that together as a draft and then maybe give it to Arlington to color, brand it appropriately. I think that would be really helpful maybe on the website.
Yes,
for folks who are trying to keep track of,
Yes.
The initial inaugural members had some exceptions meant to, create the rotational cycle. So I think that would be, color coded circles or something that, show term over term what it looks like, could provide a lot of clarity, not in the bylaws, but,
Yes.
You got it, Julie, exactly. I think that would be great on the website, not in the bylaws, because the member names will change and we need the bylaws to be living. But that's a good suggestion.
The bylaws just reminded me, I think we need it.
Okay.
I made a note, Gary.
Thanks.
Okay. So public meetings, that may also have been in the ordinance. I have to say, I can't remember that one. Closed meetings, I know that that was in the ordinance. Meeting attendance. That one I can't remember if that was strictly speaking in the ordinance. I just want to point out that we did specify that failure to attend 2 COB meetings in a single calendar year without providing prior notice to the COB chair or staff, meaning the IPA, will be considered for referral to the Arlington County Board for removal. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but the reason we felt we had to build it in there is because we just want people to understand the level of commitment, right? Like we all know what it is anyway.
That's common to other commissions. That's Arlington's sort of standard.
I think there might have had 3 meetings and we put it to 2 meetings in order to align with some of the language in the electronic meeting policy. I think we did make some small change, but yeah, I mean, I don't think it's out of line with what other commissions do. So, and then yes, the hybrid meeting policy, we have that in there now that we've adopted it. Public comment, reporting to the board. That is also in the ordinance. We are going to miss that September 1st. We already missed that September 1st deadline, but we're shooting for December 30th. So parliamentary procedures. Okay, they saved me from trying to actually write out the parliamentary procedures. This is not my strong suit, and just reference that we're using them.
And quick question.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that in my first review. Do we want to change the date in there so we don't pass bylaws that we've already broken?
So I don't think we can change it because it's in the ordinance. That's the date in the ordinance. So we broke the rules. What can I say? But when I spoke to Christian and Matt about this, they were like, "We understand," and fine, but because of the situation we're in, we're not even a fully sanctioned COB, so it's even unclear if we're really breaking the rules. But in any case, we still want to get some kind of report out by the end of the year.
That makes sense to me.
Okay, the parliamentary procedures, updates and amendments to bylaws. That was all language from before, so none of that is new. And I think
The rest of the appendices.
yeah. Yep. So we've attached the actual electronic meeting policy. Yeah, the rest are just appendices. Yep. So if anybody has any questions or anything they want to raise, let me know. I don't think there's very little changed from the last time we looked at this.
No, I think it looks good, and I'm ready to vote. Just a minor visual thing. Can we sort of delete some of the spaces and get rid of the widows and orphans? You know what I mean? Like there's headings at the bottom of the page that could be at the top of the page. You know what I mean? Just little things like that.
The formatting? You mean clean up formatting?
Yeah.
I'm sure we can do that. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. It could be done later. It doesn't change the substance, but it just, I mean, we could just, and we don't have to do that. I'm like I say, ready to vote. But yeah, there's just
that's not a substantive change. That's a
it's
sort
not
of,
a substantive change.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's not. We can do it at any time. We can. Yeah. I mean, it does need to be fixed, and we still have to put the effective date and breaking up the pages correctly and all that kind of stuff. Yes, I agree. We can certainly do that. So with that, just want to be sure, closing this out, I'm not hearing any other questions.
Yeah, I'm like Jim. I'm ready to vote scary. The beauty is the updates and amendments to bylaws section is very clear that our hands are not tied. So I'm ready to wind up this. Let's put it on the track.
Okay.
And we do know that, we do know that if we find something going along this next 6 months or year that we need to change, this does not restrict us to do this, and it talks about a process for doing that. So I'm very comfortable moving forward today.
Okay, great. So, so I'm going to move that we adopt the policy. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. So the bylaws have been adopted. Woohoo! We checked off one of those that we got to get done to be certified. Yay!
All before 7 o'clock.
We're on a roll. So fantastic. That's all done. So we can. I don't know if you guys even want to take a break. There's not because I think since we moved some of the bottom stuff up to the top, we're really just at finally the fantastic communications policy that Julie and Dave have been working on, a short presentation, and then some last minute housekeeping if anybody wants to do it. I don't want to stop people from taking a break, but we've only been at it for like an hour.
I'm going to keep going.
Everybody's cool? Okay, great. So in that case, I'm going to turn it over to Julie and Dave. As you know, they've been working on developing the communications policy for us, our outreach, basically our outreach sort of plan. So take it away and.
Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Excellent. Let me see if I can do this in presentation mode. Yeah, I'm sorry to see that there aren't as many members of the public joining us today as usual, except that that's sometimes more efficient for housekeeping. But part of what we wanted to communicate, oh, there it goes, in this update is that, this process is like the bylaws going to remain sort of in interim updates so that, we can learn as we go. This is not meant to give us a rigid framework. It's really just meant to start making visible our ideas and initiatives to connect with the community so that we can fulfill the mission well stated in the bylaw. So just quickly reminding folks who are the points of contact, updates on the sort of overall plan development, a little bit of detail into the outreach plan as it is so far and what it's hinging on and where we want to go with it, and then next steps. Again, we're working closely with counties. We intend for this to be closely coordinated with county staff. We have one county vacancy, and amidst some, training stuff, I have not been as proactive connecting with the county staff as I intend to be. So that's something that we're working on in our next iteration. But we do have sort of this preliminary framework of what the plan looks like, but what the outreach looks like is something that we're sort of building out from fundamentals to, other maybe ideas that we'd like to consider. So we'll talk through what that preliminary framework looks like at a just atomic level. Again, this is something that we need input from the other COB members individually and bring them up to speed on sort of what our thinking is to date and where we want to go from here. Further coordination with county staff, and then an excellent point made recently, because we recently got our council that we'll want to review and discuss these provisions with council. So at a very high level, the three activities that I think we have sort of some initial consensus on is obviously folks can submit a request form to provide regular meeting input. We've talked about the idea of doing public outreach meetings similar to what Arlington County and ACPD do, and then accepting written comments on the website. So I'm just going to walk through quickly these three objectives and then talk a little bit about the schedule. The regular meeting input, we are meant to meet 11 times a year. That's meant to give, us time to do our work, but that also gives us, a recurring scheduled forecastable meeting for folks who want to come and provide input to be able to do so. So through submitting a request form, they would be able to provide input at upcoming meetings. There's no real stipulation about, whether that's discussed in that meeting. But I think a lot of the outreach plan in the initial formulation will be getting input from the public. And so I want to remind the COB members that we're not really in any mode to be able to be, doing communications outwardly. But this will be the only one so far that we've talked about having at a fixed regular interval, because we have to do it. For the rest of this, we're not sure exactly what all of this will look like, because we haven't started doing the actual sort of COB duties. And so we'll want this to be flexible in the first year. So public outreach meetings are something that we've talked about, being able to go and meet with and hear from the community at different times and locations so that different folks are able to participate or provide input. This could be at rotating public locations throughout the county so that we are in compliance with our public meeting requirements and make sure that folks have a chance to plan. But this isn't something that we would anticipate, for example, doing monthly. This is something that would be a little bit more infrequent and give us that ability to connect with people directly without getting around to any of our requirements. And then written comments is sort of an easy mechanism to set up. How those will be handled and what we do with that is still something to be talked about, but giving people additional formats. We have to remember that our target audience includes people with different needs, interests, and priorities. And so making sure that we sort of diversify how people can connect with us will be really interesting, or will be really valuable in setting up this work. So for other outreach activities, we are considering outreach mechanisms beyond those sort of traditional core activities, but we want to be really careful about what we present and promise to the community in terms of connectivity, because we also recognize that we want to be sensitive to some of the logistical considerations of confidential information, regulatory compliance. So we just want to roll this out, as we said before, not so much in pace, but in substance, to make sure that this is really effective. And then again, that we want to welcome community input if there's something that the community really wants to see us do. we'll always be open to considering that, sort of in the same framework of how can we make it valuable? How can we make sure it's consistent with everything else we're set up to do? And we can iteratively update this. So at a very high level, we have talked about, our target audience being a combination of different kinds of individuals and groups. We've heard from some groups already. We hope, we can connect with others, but coming up with that, draft list is something that we'd like to initialize in some of our individual COB member conversations coming up. And then again, others that, maybe we haven't thought about, but hear from eventually. We always want to have an open-ended piece of outreach because, you always look back and see that something was more obvious. So next steps are going to be, within the COB, identifying and discussing other candidate outreach mechanisms. I know we've got a couple that we want to consider, but I want to make sure that each individual COB member has a chance to, think through and suggest what kind of connectivity makes sense to them. Reviewing, obviously, that plan and those mechanisms with our council to make sure we don't introduce any challenges. And then initialize an informal outreach schedule for 2023. So like Lisa said, with the training that we still have to do, we won't really know exactly when we can start doing these things, but it may be possible to have some initial connectivity with the county. But our schedule for the first, full calendar year is not going to be set as a, list of deadlines and milestones. It's going to be a little bit more of an agile scenario that we'll look back on at the end of next year when we update the plan again to say, do we want to have this every 6 weeks? Do we want to have this every 2 months? Is all of this way too frequent and no one's coming to talk to us, or the opposite? And then, just reviewing progress, incorporating feedback, and refining the plan iteratively to make sure that we are responsive, to the community's oversight needs and community outreach needs. And then those are our contact information again. Dave, I know I sort of blew through all of that. I don't know if there's anything else we want to add or talk through specifically. This might be a good time to have individual conversations with the COB members. If you all have any questions, I know sometimes this stuff can seem a little bit closed box, so feel free to ask questions and we can do our best to work through it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, first of all, thanks, Julie, for putting that all together. And I think what it shows is the seriousness that the COB as a whole takes with regard to doing outreach and communications. I mean, it's definitely an area for us as a board together to define ourselves to the community and to explain and to hopefully receive input. Like, that's what we're here for, is to learn what the community says and what they want, as equally as what the police want and need. You know what I mean? Like, we are in a really privileged position, I think, to have this role, and the plan is, as Julie's formulated it, is, I think, really good. And so, I mean, I do encourage us to think it through and to talk about it. And once we're fully authorized to work, this is going to be a big piece of how we learn what the county, experience is. I mean, we all have our own experience, right? And we all have our own understandings and interactions with the police. But we don't know what everybody else's is. I mean, we know and we're learning more and more about the police department and who they are. And, I think we're all really impressed. But, there's 240,000 people in the county, and our job is to get as much input as we can and to sort of be that connecting piece, which is a really exciting role. I mean, honestly, when we've heard a lot about the struggles so far of the police hiring and the need for them to get people on board. And, I think our role is, as I say, a two-way street, to help the public understand, to learn from the public where things could be done better. And I really sort of applaud the police, for being open to that. That's, to me, been one of the most impressive things. But we'll learn more as we go forward. Anyway, I think the plan is great. And again, it just bespeaks, how much we want to hear from the public. So.
One more thing before Lisa, after this meeting, David and I would like to set up one-on-ones with the folks who haven't been as much part of this conversation, not as a group of 3, but as groups of 2, to sort of give a little bit more background on, how we got to hear, what other things we've considered, what might be sensitive, and how we want to handle that. So we really want to be liberal with getting input in, but we want to be careful about what we put out, because it does, it is part of a larger framework. We have to make sure the pieces fit together. So Lisa, do you have other questions and input?
So just first of all, this is great. And I appreciate the 2 of you so much for putting the time and effort into thinking about this, because as Dave said, this is such an important part of what I think we should be doing. Just a couple of things. First off, I wanted to say, perhaps you have already talked to other community boards, but our Arlington County Board liaisons have offered to me numerous times that if I would be interested in engaging with some of the other Arlington County, boards like us, community boards, that they'd be happy to make those connections. So if at some point you guys want to talk to some of the others that I know have had to do a lot of outreach, and I think Anika's on the housing board actually, which I think is probably one of the ones that's had to do a lot of outreach. She may also have some ideas. I don't want to speak for her, but anyway, we can definitely do that. We can definitely get you connected. The other thing that occurred to me was, and undoubtedly Arlington has some requirements or regulations or guidelines on all of this, but something for us to keep in mind is when we want to do these outreach events, can we get translators? Should we think about hearing impaired? So, and to my shame, I don't always think of this, and I just want to tell you, last week I was in DC at at basically a retreat from my office, and one of my colleagues has some hearing loss, and she struggled so much because we all had our masks on and she couldn't understand what anybody was saying. And I actually have some hearing loss myself, and I was also having a hard time. And the technology that they were using was terrible because they were trying to project onto a screen. They had some like mechanized thing, and it was just, so it really made me, want to remind myself that we have to remember that there are people who need those translations and those services. And as I said, Arlington County probably has guidelines on how you do that, but I just want to throw that out there so we remember when we do these events to get, think about translators and hearing impaired and stuff like that. I'm done. So
I would love to connect. I'm sure Dave and I would love to connect with the other outreach liaisons, especially because I think that's something that he and I can do together. But maybe what we want to do is get through the one-on-one meetings first, just to sort of bring everyone else up to speed on where we are, get questions, and then we can do that again afterwards, but to figure out what worked for them really well, what totally, wasn't feasible or had unexpected. I think that would be great before we start kicking off some of these, broader outreach events. But then maybe also thinking about a preliminary, this just came to me, so maybe it's a bad idea, feel free to say so, but like maybe putting out a preliminary sort of like summative of the outreach, that like, here is how you can contact the COB, which is basically through, you can submit a request form or you can submit written comments for now, additional things coming. I don't know that that's necessary. I haven't heard, my friends and family are banging on my door to, stay up to speed, but I do appreciate, Lisa, your interest in making sure that it's visible, that this is a really important priority to us, to make sure that, it's not a conceptual exercise in, police oversight academia, but really a connected community initiative that's based on, the shared identity of our fellow community members. So I'll take those as our next steps, is, the one-on-one meetings, and then we'll circle up with you to get contacts for the outreach liaisons.
Yeah, I have a question. I know on our website, there's actually already a link that says, you know, you can provide public input. Where does that go? Like, have we received any of that? And who gets it? Does it go, Mummy, does it go to you or does it go to the county? Like the page that we have on the county's website for the Oversight Board has a link that says public input. And I don't know if we've received any. I mean, I don't think we have, but I mean, we're not really fully, you know, we haven't passed the readiness resolution, but I was just curious, does that go to, who does it go to?
I was going to cover that in my updates, but happy to answer that question now since it came up. That is a public comment form. So basically with all public meetings, members of the public are supposed to have ways to provide public comment via a written comment or by giving some sort of spoken public comment during a meeting in person or virtually. So that public comment form is just a way for folks to be able to sign up essentially and let us know what meetings they might want to give comment at, and also what items specifically they want to give comment on. Then to answer your second part of the question, it will go to myself or Lisa, or both actually, sorry, it'll go to both of us. It's a very, very new feature. Actually, the first time that it was ever posted was for this meeting. It's something that has been in the works for a couple of weeks, but as we transitioned over into hybrid meetings, we as in the staff liaisons, including myself or other people who like work as a liaison between commissions and the county, received a number of things that we needed to kind of like do moving forward to make sure that we were adhering to all of the like meetings rules. So that included passing the electronic meetings policy, publicly posting our meetings, which we were already doing on our page, but now it's linked to the county website. So now if you go on our page, if you notice on the side, it'll have like an actual event for each meeting. So folks can see the meeting information there on the side and get access to the meeting links and the locations of our meetings, physical and virtual, or it'll let you know if it's just virtual. And then the public comment button will allow members of the public to go on and sign up to make public comment for all meetings moving forward, not just one specific meeting. So that's why it's not in the right corner with each event specific information. So yeah, we haven't gotten any yet, but I'm curious to see how they're going to look when they come in. I gave it a little test run, and basically what happens is you fill out the form. You can even ask for and request special accommodation, like if you want to speak longer. Usually the spoken period of time is limited to 5 minutes, but you can request more time if you needed to for a particular subject. You can also request a translator or sign language interpreter or things like that. If we, knew ahead of time, then we would certainly be able to source those resources out to make sure that everyone can engage in a manner that, would allow them to fully participate. So once you finish doing all of that, you'll get a confirmation number at the end, and then the actual comment will go to myself and Lisa. It's a written comment. We ask that they be submitted 24 hours in advance so that we have an opportunity to disseminate those written comments to you all going into the meeting. But there may also be instances where folks give public comment in real time during the meeting. So as we go through agenda items, as we call each agenda item, if there is public comment for that agenda item, that's the point at which a member of the public would give comment on that particular piece. Which I think you're familiar with, because if I recall correctly, I think you might have participated in some of the county board meetings when they were creating this oversight board. So it's basically the same thing, but that's how you get to the end result of allotting time for folks to speak. That way we know if someone is just signed on for purposes of viewing, or they're signed on because they want to give comment.
That's great. No, it's
Sorry, that was a
impressive
very
to
long
have that up
answer,
there.
but it gives
No,
some
thank you.
context as to what it does and how it works.
That's great. Fantastic.
Hey, Lisa, I have a comment and two questions. Hopefully it'll be short here. No, my first comment is, Julie, I'm so glad you're the face of our outreach. I mean, you are professional, you exude compassionate, and just very, very well suited for this. So thank you. Thank you for that presentation. I think we're set up to get this going well. So the second question is, do you envision kind of a planning calendar? Like right now, we're getting the structure, the framework. So let's kind of fast forward a year. Hopefully we've got our new members. We're trained, we're certified, and everything. Do you envision having kind of a planning calendar of, hey, here's kind of the types of events we're going to do, blah blah blah. Kind of for this year, or the real thing is how do we connect the COB? Like what I'm envisioning is as you develop this, I'd like to hear your thoughts about how you will integrate and use members of the COB who might, you know, get coached, or we get the framework and we get the rules of, how do we go and, possibly be present or participate in these things. So will there be kind of some baseline framework, phrases, sentences, things to give to, say, Martin, Martine has an interest to go to one of the events on your planning calendar. Can you just, give us a little forecast?
Yeah, I think, well, first I want to say, David and I spoke about this, sort of at length at the beginning of the summer, and it was only through conversations, bouncing ideas off of each other and Lisa and Mummy, and sort of talking through the pros and cons of different approaches. So this is certainly not the result of my work. This is, collaborative. And I earnestly think still the piece of it that's visible is smaller than what we have, in the works. But, there's things like, I think that there might be interesting ways to use the public meeting requirement to our advantage, but we have to be careful. For example, if we were to try to set up meetings with individuals who wanted to give us input, it's tempting to want to facilitate opportunities on a rotational basis for different COB members, sort of like office hours, to sit and, hear from folks directly. But we're still figuring out what would it look like to capture that input? What would it look like to store that input? How would you keep it private? How would you share it with the rest of the county board? So, I think right now it looks like the atomic pieces of it are a little flat, that like, oh, you can come to our meeting or you can submit a written comment. And we want to add more color to it. But like we said, we want to be sure that we do that in a way that's mindful of the sensitivity of the input people may come to us, and our responsibility to, each other, the community, and the police, to do that in a way that's structured and, enables our work, not, complicates or distracts from it. So I definitely think that the community communications and outreach should be a sort of team effort. As far as what to say right now, I think that it's valuable sometimes to have a little bit of a party line that's just to remind people that we're not yet fully authorized. We're still working on training, but we're learning interesting things. And as an individual member, sharing what you've learned with folks is, probably the only thing we can do now. But it is constructive, because a lot of what I've learned in the training is that there's some visibility gaps between, how much effort the police have put into, training in different things and how they're perceived, but also what they think that they're, doing and what they're able to perceive. So I do not imagine that this will be, me and David, out in the streets with a microphone being the voice and the face of this, but it will definitely take some time to get to that planning calendar. When we initially talked about the schedule, we said, we could try a very conservative recurring framework, like maybe our goal is to do this every 6 months, just so we could get one on the calendar. But we don't really need to establish that frequency right now. And some of the Arlington County staff have been very helpful, to me at least, in talking through, the pros and cons of different things, does go back to pace over substance, that we don't want to get something done quickly that's going to complicate our job down the line. So for right now, if we can just say, you know, at first we want to try this, and, you know, we want to try this again, and sort of roll it out that way. I think that the iterative update emphasis is because each thing we do, each time we, you know, do something, have a meeting, we all learn a little bit more and are better prepared for the next situation. So I imagine that for the first year, the plan will sort of be what we call like a living document, right? That we can update and provide updates on. I think those are our sort of foremost commitments. We want to be transparent. We want to be, you know, collaborative amongst ourselves, and we want to make sure that we've got comprehensive mechanisms for people to reach us so that we are responsive. So that's certainly my vision. I don't think it's valuable for anyone to hear from, you know, just me or just me and David over and over, but we're happy to help facilitate that comfort in talking about it too.
No, that's real good. Hey, so real quick, this second question, and I'm going to tie into Mummy when we talked about the readiness resolution and we started laying in these other pieces, and I'm going to go to the complaint system. You know, that's one of the tickers we're going to do. So have you and David talked about that? I don't think this is your role, but I do believe that there is a link between, you know, what you learn in outreach and what this system is, whether you guys are going to be helping provide inputs. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. I think you guys, you don't own that necessarily. I mean, maybe Lisa has told you guys to take that and start drafting it, but that's what I don't think she's doing. But I think that because of your linkage with the outreach and what you will learn from the community, might that help inform whoever we pin the rows on, or what committee or whatever, or whether it's Mummy. But I see the outreach being a piece of formulating what that looks like. Is that, I mean, do you see that, or am I just in a dream right now? Go ahead, Lisa.
Do you mean the intake system that we're required to do? Okay, so
Yes.
that's actually something Mummy's working on, and something that the IPA is required to set up. And I'm not going to speak for her, except to say that I know she's mentioned this, and I do think that we talked about this sort of broadly being part of a, you know, it's not an outreach, but, you know, that it would probably benefit from whomever our outreach people are, which are obviously Julie and Dave, taking a look at it. But I'm going to let Mummy talk about it because I know she's been working on it.
Yeah, I just see David and Julie providing input to that. I kind of figured it was somebody in the county, but I really see strong linkage between David and Julie, with at least sharing their 2 cents to whatever that process is.
I was just going to say, Gary, I think that, you know, I love what Mummy said. I have twice more recently gone back and reread the ordinance just to sort of refresh myself. That's why I love the bylaws, the 7, you know, bullets, just having, you know, what is our role and what can we do? So to me, the thought of, you know, well, what happens with this? My first question is, well, what could we do with that? And I think probably the input in the intake and, you know, complaints or any real input we get through outreach, we're not going to be responding to individual, you know, items like that. It's going to be something that we incorporate in our reviews and our understanding and our perspective. And so the real like official capacity for that is going to be policy recommendations, that if through some community members, you know, comment that they, you know, bring to our attention some gap or some blind spot or some flaw in the existing approach, then that's, you know, definitely baked into our job. I don't see that. I think part of what we want to be really careful about is setting clear expectations and visibility into what we can do with the information that's provided to us, because we're certainly not here to, you know, resolve all kinds of, you know, disputes that may come in that way. That's not my understanding of the approach.
Yeah, I just see you guys. I see you guys helping make sure that we meet people where they're at. That's really kind of, you're going to have a good sense of that in, you know, blind spots and different things. So whatever we do set up or other venues, I just see so much good in what you do, not in running things or controlling things, but just helping fill in blind spots so that processes, we can meet the community where they're at, particularly as it relates to complaints.
Yeah, and once the complaint system is set up, obviously, to state the obviously, I mean, we'll all have learned about it and be aware of it and familiar with it, and certainly any of us will, when we're having communication with people in the public, be able to discern the kind of thing that's a comment relative to a policy potential versus an individualized matter, and be able to say, thank you, here's the complaint process. If what you're bringing to us relates specifically to an issue that is personal to you or is subject to a complaint, right? I mean, that's obvious. But we don't know what we'll get, right? As part of the public input. I mean, we might get all kinds of things. So I do think that it'll be important for us to have a full-on sort of internal training about, okay, here is the outreach plan and here's what we're, hoping to do. And then here's the complaint process, so that we're all familiar with that. And the other thing, and Julie, you and I talked about this briefly, was I think at some point we can add just a few bullets, so either to the communication policy or at least circulate it to the group, so that if we're contacted, any of us are contacted by a reporter, having an understanding of what's on background, what's on the record, and sort of a brief, elevator kind of speech as to what the board does, right? I mean, and again, that's once we're all up and running, but that's because some people are very familiar, certainly Julie, you with the public and with reporters, but not everybody is. And so I think we need to provide guidance to people on, here are the rules. If somebody contacts you, you can provide your own opinion, but if we've already talked about, we need to, if one of us is talking for the board, we need to have that squared away internally. And of course, everybody has their own First Amendment rights, right? But we want to have a sense of how we're going to go about that and how we're going to respond to something if we're working on an issue that is going to get public attention.
Yeah, I would just recommend, I mean, I think we've talked about this a little bit, but that we're really just not in information, distribution mode outside of our public meetings yet. We really don't, I mean, we're not,
yeah,
we don't
really
have
not much right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So that, I mean, that's just something to say, like, we're working on training, we're working on our requirements, and we're excited about what we're learning and getting started. But even after that, yeah, I think we will definitely be able to provide some talking points, so that if anyone has any unexpected communication or outreach situation arise, that they'll feel equipped to handle that. That's all from us.
Great. Well,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate what you both have done and all the effort you've put into this and all the thoughtfulness that how thoughtful you've been about it. It's, it's an important part of what we need to do, even though it's not listed in the ordinance, which is why I know we want to keep mentioning it so that people know that it's important to us. So, so I guess the next step is you guys will reach out to individuals to talk one-on-one to get some feedback. So please be on the lookout for an email from Dave or Julie, or a text message, or however you guys choose to do it. And I hope you can connect with them, because we want this to be something that reflects everybody's feedback. So I have to let my dog in because she's scratching at the door. I think we're up to housekeeping, unless there's something else. I apologize. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Keep talking.
Yeah, did we have other housekeeping, or are we? I know Mummy started some of her housekeeping items before. I wasn't sure what else we might have to cover.
Why don't I start us off by I had a little checklist of things that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned. I know I've probably addressed a few of them, so I'm just gonna make sure that I covered everything. So we talked about some potential new training scheduling dates and kind of like the context around why. that the October 15th on-site training is going to be postponed to a later date. I also wanted to highlight that I emailed out some additional NACOL training opportunities. So again, some other things that we could be doing in the meantime. I've already registered Lisa for the October 11th 1-hour training. That one's evidence-based policing. And then there are 3 days of NACOL virtual conference that's going to start in the end of October. And then I believe there's 2 dates, the 9th and the 11th, I want to say. I can pull that up just to make sure I'm giving you guys the right dates. But it's in the email that I sent you. And I also attached the schedule for those dates. The schedule does not list an exact start time, but I saw a reference on there to 10 a.m. So I would estimate that it probably is going to start around that time, but it's probably going to be like an all day kind of there's definitely 4 sessions each day. And I would estimate that they'd at least be an hour, maybe a little bit longer. So definitely plan for those days to be like full days. And if you can find yourself available for those 3 days, or even one of those 3 days, that would be great. Again, none of these are mandatory, but just certainly, I think, really great information. I certainly benefited a lot from attending the in-person NACOL conference last month. And it's just a really great time to be kind of in the zone and fellowshipping with other folks who are doing this work. And you just hear and learn a lot from people's experiences. It tends to spark a lot of really creative ideas and just really build up a lot of great momentum and inspiration. So I strongly encourage that you attend at least one day if you are able to. And if you are, please do let me know. I will register you and I will cover your training costs. I did mention that the Learning Center, did you have a question, Julie?
I was just going to say the NACOL webinar series that they've been doing, they make the webinar recordings available on it's not their YouTube channel, but it's on YouTube. And the most recent one was Policing Regulation Oversight, was Problems, Trends, and Solutions. I thought it was really interesting. I'll send the link to the group afterwards, but those additional ones have been, sort of other color and perspective, maybe not delivered to us, but more in the community of practice. So I thought that one was really
Thank
valuable.
you, Julie. I appreciate that. That's a great point. And they do exactly what you just said, like just kind of help us really put context to the training that we're undergoing and seeing kind of how it all comes together. So definitely let me know if you're interested in any of those opportunities. Again, all this information was sent out to your county emails, but if for some reason you can't find it, just reach out to me and I'll be happy to forward that to you. We already mentioned the Learning Center trainings are up and running. I would very much appreciate if folks can complete their outstanding trainings by October 15th. If for some reason that does not seem doable to you because of your other outside circumstances, or it's just too many sessions or too many hours, please let me and Lisa or me and Jim know so that we can try to figure out a workaround. I just want to make sure that we are at least up to date on all of our trainings by the end of October, which is our initial goal. So we want to make sure that we want to try to adhere to all of the things that are within our power. And that's one of those things that now is thanks to Sharon Miller and the Learning Center. We talked about the public comment forum, which is now up. Thanks to David and Mason at the county for helping me put that up. That was also not a one-person job. I know you guys are shocked and surprised, but I'm not a techie and I needed a lot of assistance to make that happen. So I am very grateful for them for having helped me with that. The last 2 things are that we are hiring our management analyst. I sent out an email about that earlier, which includes the link. I would absolutely love it if you all would share that link with your networks. And for anybody that is going to listen to this call later on, the management analyst position is posted on the Arlington website. I will also post a link to it if permissible. I'm going to double check that. So asterisk, if permissible with hiring, if we can post that on our county page so folks can see that if they log on to our county, our COB website. If not, it will be on the Arlington County website, and the management analyst position will serve as administrative support staff to both myself, the independent policing auditor, as well as the community oversight board. So that application is now live. It went live last Friday, and it will close on October 13th. There is a possibility that we might extend it a little bit if we want to perhaps garner more applications, but so far it's already received a lot of traction. So I'm confident and hopeful that we will be in a good position to start looking at some of those applications in the middle of the month. And I would really love it if we had someone hired before the end of the year. So please, 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 if there's anyone that is that you know that would be interested in this position, that would be a good fit, feel free to send this out to your networks. And if you need any other information about the position or kind of what kind of skills and stuff we would like for someone to fill this position, I'm happy to talk with folks individually about that as well. The last thing is, yes?
Sorry, does that need to be a county resident?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I didn't think so. I just thought I'd ask. Thank you.
No, no problem. The last thing is that the county is gearing up to prepare their legislative initiatives for the 2023 General Assembly. So they've asked all commissions to submit any recommendations that they have around any potential legislation that they would like Arlington County to consider putting on their agenda for the General Assembly session. So Gary and I are leading that cause on behalf of our oversight team. It's due this Friday, but if you have it doesn't have to be anything in depth, right? We're just giving a list of, potential subject areas or ideas or things that we would like to kind of see the county address or look into. It's not a guarantee that they will actually do it, but I think, giving some context as to why it's relevant to our particular commission or relevant to, some of the work that the county would be interested in would be super helpful. And as I said, it doesn't have to be anything really, really long, but if there's anything that you've been thinking about, ideally something that, kind of overlaps with the work that we're doing, Gary and I would be happy to discuss that with you, or if you just want to email us, we'd be happy to add that to our list of recommendations. And again, that's going to the county on Friday. So before Friday would be the deadline there. I think that's it for me as far as housekeeping. Oh, one last thing, sorry. So moving forward, as we probably make some adjustments on our training schedule, one of our colleagues, Jim, is getting his master's, applause. And unfortunately, his, right, as if he's not already doing enough, hats off to you, Jim. His class is unfortunately on Tuesdays. And so that's why he has to come every other meeting, because he has to basically sacrifice either missing this meeting or missing class. So he's really trying to, be at both, but unfortunately just not capable of being in two places at one time. Anyways, Jim has humbly and respectfully asked that we consider some other possible days of the week that might work out, to the extent that we're going to be trying to reschedule some of these trainings out, seeing if there are other dates, any day really, but Tuesday, and probably not Friday, because I don't think you guys want to be hanging out with me on a Friday night. Then I would love to maybe just briefly discuss some other potential dates that might work, days of the week rather, that might work for other members, and see if there's a consensus that we can reach.
I know a couple of times we had, in our previous scheduling initiative, talked about avoiding Mondays because it's Monday, but I also wonder if that might not make it a better choice for moving forward, because it sounds like, I know we've got a couple of other conflicts in the group rotation. Is that something anyone would be interested in considering, or is that too much?
So the problem with Monday, so the problem with Mondays was mostly for summer, because I figured sometimes people want to take long weekends, and also a lot of federal holidays are on Mondays. But I think in this instance, if I'm understanding correctly, Mummy, we're not talking about changing our regular meeting day. We're just talking about when we schedule these special trainings that we're going to try and find not a Tuesday, right? Because our regular meetings are only once a month anyway. And so that I don't think would be a problem for Jim if he only had to do this once a month. it's the trainings. Is that right, Mummy? Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay. Because we just, yeah. So, and also, I was actually trying to find the email he sent because I think this course is over certainly by December, but relatively soon. So this is not a ongoing challenge for him. It's just in this particular period. So, I'm fine either way. I don't think people love to do Fridays. I think Mondays are fine from my perspective, but sometimes they're federal holidays. But I don't have a problem with Mondays.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Monday either.
So,
yeah, I shared earlier, I don't have a problem with Monday, Gary. I don't have a problem with Monday.
Monday that would work with me too, but was there any other options anyway? I'm only hearing Monday, so I think we should go with that.
It's totally fine with me if that works. It just depends on the specific Monday. I have no plans of being anywhere, so I don't think it would be a problem for me. But maybe what we need to do, Mummy, is put forward some specific option dates and just make sure that everybody says, that works for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good. But just knowing that Mondays are generally a good time frame for everyone is helpful. And then I'll work with Captain Chamberlain to set up some proposed dates for the remaining ACPD trainings.
Okay. Do you remember how many, other than the weekend full day training, how many training days we have left? I thought it was just a couple, but.
Yeah, it's just 2. It's the part 1 of the OPR and part 2 of the OPR.
Great. All right. So it's just a couple of days we're training. Okay.
And just to be clear, we're talking Monday, 6 p.m.-ish, same kind of times, right? So, even though the holidays, most of us that have to work would generally, get back in the area, late afternoon. So I can make that work even on the holidays.
I think that's fine, but it also, since we're already revising the schedule, Anika, I don't want to speak for you, but I know that you're like kind of tight on time getting off work and getting in right at 6. So I don't know if it's possible to do 6:15 to 9:15, or if there's any room for like some grace period there, or a slightly later start. I don't know if that would help you or not, Anika, on Monday specifically.
I don't know. She may not have heard us.
I did. I heard you.
Okay.
Mondays is fine. Actually get off earlier, so you said start at 6 o'clock on Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll be off way before then, so that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to flag that in case there was any way that we might be able to be flexible there for you. But sounds like 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock is still a good time. And then we're going to look for Mondays for our additional trainings.
Okay, great.
Thank you all. I appreciate your flexibility.
Yeah. So anything else that we haven't touched on? So I guess at this point, we won't be meeting again until the first week in November, but there's probably going to be a lot of emails going on from Julie and Dave to try and speak with each of you on the community outreach, and from Mummy updating us on training and also on new membership and other things. So please remember to just keep checking your emails so we can connect and keep the information flowing. So I think that's it. If there isn't any additional business. No? Okay. Hearing none, I declare the meeting adjourned.
We still have that training. I'm sorry. We still have the training on Saturday, right?
No. We don't have any trainings scheduled at this point, including that one. Or we did, and we have to cancel them for now until we get new members on board.
Okay.
You're talking about the all-day one, right?
Yeah, the one
Yeah.
on the one on the 15th. Again, Anika, I think maybe if you get a chance to see the email I sent last night.
Yeah, I've been having issues
Oh.
trying to log in. That's why I haven't been able to see. So that's why I have questions that probably was already answered in the email. So
That's totally
I'm
fine.
gonna have to, huh?
That's totally fine. I just wanted you to know that you should be able to find the information there. Again, it's just we're not going to have any of the trainings that we had scheduled at the moment until we get new members on, and then we're going to reschedule them. So,
Okay, so the 15th and the 18th is canceled.
yeah, I mean, I know the 15th and whatever the other date was, probably the 18th.
And just to be determined.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to make sure we close this out right, we're expecting some more information about the new members possibly. And then I think what I heard Captain Chamberlain say, she's going to be working with you, Mummy. I would anticipate that there could be some searching for possible dates the next few months. So I'm hoping that we hear some things regarding that. I know Captain Chamberlain said that she and you would have some things for us to consider because the calendars are kind of full. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to that piece too, whatever information can be shared that she wants to offer to us.
Great. So just keep checking your emails and we'll start connecting and figuring out new dates for stuff. And we're probably breaking the rules because I already adjourned the meeting. So I'm going to adjourn it again. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Sal.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.